There's a lot of long-term challenges that Grain Growers of Canada is looking at. One of them is infrastructure. We know in Canada that we are heavily reliant on our trade-enabling infrastructure. The Port of Vancouver is a perfect example of this. We have crumbling infrastructure there. Over 50% of the grain grown in Canada goes through the Port of Vancouver. It's extremely important to the grain sector, but we need the government to invest in trade-enabling infrastructure, not only in Vancouver, but all across the country. The other long-term challenge that we have is really around innovation and research. We know that public plant breeding, for every dollar invested in public plant breeding, we make back $32 in economic activity. However, the government of Canada has been lowering and decreasing their public plant breeding funding, and they also haven't been hiring the amount of scientists that we need here in Canada. So that's been extremely challenging. We're advocating and lobbying the government to make sure that they get their dollars back up, especially at a time of austerity that we're seeing in Canada. The Prime Minister has specifically said that they'll be reducing funds in Ottawa and at the federal level, but we need to make sure that doesn't impact public research and development. And the last one that's obviously topical and on everyone's mind nowadays is international trade. Extremely important to grain farmers. We export over 60% of the grain that we grow here in Canada, but we need those markets to be open. We need free trade. The US obviously has been challenging of late. We export over $17 billion of grain and grain products to the US every single year. Our second largest trading partner, we've also had major issues on tariffs on peas and canola from China, where it's an $8 billion market for grain and grain products. That's been challenging. And then there's many other markets around the world that are there, and some are challenging, some have opportunities, but the government of Canada needs to take this seriously. We really need the government to rebuild relationships with our American counterparts, rebuild relationships with our Chinese counterparts. India also has a huge potential, especially for pulse growers. And so those are really some of the long-term issues that we're dealing with at Grain Growers of Canada.